can you tell a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Craig Leen. I'm a partner at K&L Gates in Washington, D.C. I'm also on the Eightfold Advisory Board, and I serve on a number of boards and committees. Another committee I serve on is the D.C. Advisory Committee for the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, which informs a lot of my advice that I give on diversity, equity, inclusion matters. I'm really excited to be on that committee. I'm a new member, but I've been preparing and doing a lot of thinking and reading to prepare. My practice at K&L Gates focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And I advise companies in those areas and on pay equity, and also eliminating glass ceilings and making sure that companies are promoting everyone without regard to protected class, with a particular focus on ensuring promotions of women, women of color, people of color, people with disabilities, any underrepresented group. And then in addition to all that, before I was at K&L Gates, I was the director of the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs of the U.S. Department of Labor, OFCCP. And in that role, I led a federal civil rights agency that focused extensively on pay equity, hiring equity, promotion equity, elimination of glass ceilings.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for all that you've done. So, in your kind of various roles, what were some of the working mom strategies and policies you've implemented or considered?
At OFCCP, I made parental leave one of the primary focuses of my work there, making sure that every company knew that you had to provide parental leave equally for men and women, that you couldn't just provide it for women, that you provided it for men too. Now, obviously that helps dads, it being provided for men, but it helps moms too, because one thing that the studies all show is that in workplaces that provide equitable parental leave to both men and women, women are more likely to take it. And when women come back, they're more likely to be advanced because it's not something viewed as special that only women do, and then women don't get advanced when they come back. You want an equitable leave policy. You want leave policies that are supported, that the company is asking people to take them, encouraging them to take the leave. So that's something I focused on a lot at OFCCP. I think it explains a lot of the gender disparity that exists in industries like law and finance, where you have tenured faculty. There's a number of industries like that where if you look at like partners or shareholders, about 80% are men and about 20% are women. And I think a big part of that is because of leave policies, parental leave policies, and caregiver leave policies in particular, that are not fair ultimately. And even though the company may think, oh, well, we're giving this policy to women, and maybe they're not giving it to men to the same extent, and they're participating in these gender stereotypes. What also tends to happen is that the women are more likely to lose these opportunities, and that when women come back, they are sort of slotted into a non-equity position or a non-partner or non-shareholder position, whereas men are more up or out. And over time, I think that contributed to the 80-20 split. But let me tell you, that's one of the biggest issues in this country, I think, is how many women are leaving those positions. And it's something we need to learn. We need to understand why, and we need to address it. I think we know a lot of the reasons, because of inequities and things like that. But that is one of I've seen studies that say that trillions of dollars are lost in the economy because of underrepresentation of women, people of color, women of color in these higher positions, because we're losing their skills and talents. Whenever you have 80-20 split, 80% men, 20% women, there is going to be huge inequities and distortions in the market, and you're going to be losing so much talent. We could be doing so much better if we address that issue.
I imagine you've managed or worked with many working moms throughout your career. What separated the ones who experienced a steep career trajectory?
In my experience, a lot of it is it's more about the company they work for and whether the company is making sure that the working mom is getting assignments, is being treated equitably, is getting paid fairly, is being given opportunities. I've generally worked at places like that, so I've seen working moms do really well. And if I'm a manager of a working mom, I make sure that that happens. So, a lot of it is just about being transparent to the extent you feel you can, because, I also want to, I know that there are stereotypes and there is discrimination out there. So I always respect how much information a working mom wants to provide. But what I found is that working moms that are very upfront and forthright about, hey, I want to be a great mom and I want to be a great employee and I want to advance to a high position and I want you to respect the balance between work and family, which is the same for working dads who want to have both of those things. You should be able to have it all. I mean, that seems to me, it's not as actually asking for very much to be able to be a parent and a good one, and also be able to maintain your job and advance. That work-life balance is something that needs to be supported by employers and by supervisors. So, one area where you see pay inequity occur sometimes is if women do take a couple years off, but let's say they remain, interested, engaged, they continue to do their continuing legal education or medical education, whatever it may be, or maybe they're working part-time and they're staying up to date, but then they come back to a full-time job, they're often 2 years behind their male counterparts in terms of their salaries, which can lead to a pay inequity. They may be coming back doing the exact same job as their male colleague who didn't have to take those 2 years. A lot of times women didn't have a choice, and they're coming back and they're doing the same job as that male colleague and they're not getting paid the same. That can be a real issue. And so companies need to think about that. And also they need to make sure that women coming back into the workforce are given opportunities fairly so that they have the chance to advance. That's one of the ways to address the glass ceiling, is through making sure that you have a centralized system. Anytime you have an industry which is 80% male, 20% female, where women of color are extremely underrepresented, you have to be concerned about unconscious bias, affinity bias, biases in the way that work is assigned. And you need to be assessing that to make sure that women and women of color are being given the same opportunity. And you need to check. If you don't check and you're not assessing that or auditing that, it often will be assigned inequity.
COVID-19 was particularly hard on working moms who needed to juggle work and actively schooling their children. What are some of the changes you've seen or implemented in response to the pandemic that improve the lives and balancing acts of working moms?
You need to provide flexibility. And also then once the person has a plan, you should be going to them and saying, well, how can we support you? You're going to be doing this flexible work arrangement. What sort of things can we do to help you? Do you need a computer at home? Do you need access to the workplace in the evenings? Do you need, what can we do technology-wise or support-wise to help you so that you can have this flexible work assignment, so you can both be the parent you need to be in these very difficult circumstances and also retain your job and continue to be part of our workforce and in a way that makes you happy, productive, and feel that this work is meaningful. The best employers are able to do that. And typically it's having very good parental leave and caregiver leave policies, and then also encouraging supervisors, training them and encouraging them to reach out to employees like that. Employees, that's one of the nicest things you can do for an employee. Tell them, you don't have to get into their personal life too much, but you can say, I know we're giving you this flexible policy because of your family. Is there anything else we can do? How can we help you? I want you to be successful. Care about you being successful. And then allow, and a lot of that's allowing, higher level HR and management. If you know that someone is having that sort of flexible policy or is a caregiver, reaching out to them directly too, not only doing it through the supervisor, because sometimes the supervisor will be the one causing the problem for the person by making it really hard for them, not giving them flexibility, maybe even giving them a lower evaluation because they're not available at certain times, which can cause tremendous stress for that person who feels like, oh my goodness, I'm doing all this work as a parent, caregiver. I'm doing all this work here and I'm getting a bad evaluation. You know, is it worth it? Do I want to be here? Maybe I should look for another job. Maybe I should take some time off. So it's important that HR also has a direct contact with that person or some sort of ability for them to submit a survey or some sort of assessment of how things are going for them, that HR or that a centralized, it's usually HR, but it could be an EEO office or something, is interacting with them, making sure they're getting everything they need.
And then this is an interesting question. Is there anything you may have implemented or anything you know of that did not have the desired effect?
No, this is an area where I could tell you that everything I've done in this area always is positive, because what you'll see is that working moms really are grateful and appreciate the opportunity and they run with it. So, when I said, let's focus on parental leave, and we're going to start looking at it in every audit at OFCCP, I got tremendously positive feedback, and it was a very successful program. When I support parental leave policies or things like that, like I mentioned, in Florida, or when I was at the Dade County Attorney's Office or as Coral Gables City Attorney, always positive. And they always work because they're greatly appreciated. They're the right thing to do, 100%. And it's consistent with diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So they tend to be, very popular programs too. Once they're made broad and everyone knows that they can qualify for it, if they're a parent, they can qualify for it, or if they're a caregiver, they can qualify for it. It provides tremendous peace of mind, and they're very popular, which is why I highly recommend that more companies do it, because it's something you can do that increases quality of life for your employees, is really helpful to working moms, and helps address the wage gap and the promotion gap that exists in this country.